What's up team, my name is Mark and welcome back to Making Instagram Bangers, the series where I teach you all of the tips and tricks that I use to shoot and edit photos. Now today, a bit of a special episode. I'm going to be showing you 3 tricks that I use in either Photoshop or Lightroom, both work, to get rid of people, tourists, or anything that I don't want to see in the picture. Now, there's 100 different ways of doing this. I'm going to be showing you the 3 tips that work for me, the ones that I use the most, and that I find pretty much the easiest to apply. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay, tip number 1, using the spot removal tool in Lightroom. Okay, so we're in Lightroom right now, and this photo here has already been edited, but as you can see, there's a tourist right in the center. So what I'm going to do is just zoom in and grab the spot removal tool, which is up here in the top right corner. Now, the way this tool works is you brush an area on the photo and it's going to try and find something similar that it can use to cover up. It's used mainly to remove skin imperfections, spots, or whatever, but in certain instances, it can work really well to remove tourists, especially if there's not too much going on in the background or there's not too much detail. In this case, there's just this bridge, not too much detail, it will work perfectly. So I'm just going to grab the spot removal tool and just slowly brush over this guy. You don't have to be super precise, just eyeball it and you should be fine. And voila, done. Super easy. Look at that, that is just way too easy. So if we zoom out a little bit, you can barely notice the difference. Now, if you zoom back in, you'll see that, of course, it is a little bit blurry, the lines aren't perfect, but if you zoom out, you really can't tell. So for instances like these, it does work really well. Now, the way it works is whatever you've brushed, it's going to create a surface somewhere else. And it's going to take whatever's in this second surface and apply it to the first one. Now, it doesn't always work super well, and sometimes you have to guide it a little bit. So in this instance, it just found the bridge at the bottom, and that was fine. But sometimes, for example, you might end up with something weird like this. So all you have to do is grab this second shape here and just place it on something that looks similar to what you're trying to achieve. So in this case, I want more of the bridge. So I'm just going to drag it over to the bridge, and there we go. Done. Super easy. Now, if we look at this second photo, we can try and do something similar and just brush over all of these guys right here. There we go, super easy. However, as you can see, in some instances, when you're brushing over a lot of things, there can be some sort of patchy spots that don't look too good. You can kind of see this blur around here, which really isn't that nice. It's not perfect. You could get away with just moving these areas around and trying to find, spots that work better or something like that. But this is where tip number 2 comes in and can really make your workflow a lot easier. Okay, tip number 2, using the content-aware fill straight in Photoshop. So I've opened this photo in Photoshop, and what I'm going to do is just lasso all the areas that I don't want. So in this case, I'm just going to grab over this person right here. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and just keep on adding to the selection. So all these guys here, this area here, this guy, whatever here. Now you can spend a bit more time and really refine the areas you don't want, but this should work fine as is. So now I'm just going to hit Edit, Content Aware Fill, and voila, look at that, super easy. Now, the way this works is whatever you've selected, it's going to look at whatever's painted in green and try and fill the selection areas with whatever's in green. So you can refine the selection if you want by just brushing out areas that Photoshop isn't going to use or doesn't need to replace those areas. But in this instance, super easy, it does all the job for you. So I can just hit OK, and voila, look at that. Before and after, super easy, no more tourists, and a much nicer photo. Okay, tip number 3 in Photoshop, using layer masks and selective masking. So in this particular image, I know the previous tips aren't going to work because there's a lot of detail. And if I try painting over the area, it's just going to get mushy and blurry and it's all going to jumble together. It just really isn't going to look nice. See, if I try and just select this dude here, let's just grossly select him. Something like that. And if I hit Edit, Content Aware Fill, See, it's just going to create this sort of jumbled mess that doesn't really look like much. We can try and refine the selection, but because there's a lot of detail, there's a lot of light, a lot of things going on in the background, it's just not going to look as nice as I want it to. And you'll be able to see all this blur going on. It's just really not going to look nice. So in this particular case, I've noticed that on the right side of the image, there's no one there. And there's a lot of symmetry going on. So what I can just do is try and see if I can apply what's on the right side of the image to the left. So I'm just going to grab the selection tool, grab a selection here, something like that. I'm going to duplicate it using Command J, and then transform with Command T, and then right click, flip horizontal, and just drag it over here. Now this looks nice already. I could arguably try and brush out some of this area here so I can get, my original position. I quite like having all this extra detail on the left and having something a little bit different, not too much symmetry. So I'm just going to use a select part of this layer. So to do this, I'm just going to click on layer mask down here. I'm going to fill it with black. That way it isn't applied. And I'm going to zoom all the way in. I'm going to grab my brush tool, make sure it's set to 0% hardness, and then I'm just going to slowly brush over this area here, just revealing what's underneath. There we go, something like this. Looks quite nice. There we go. We're getting all this information back. This is great. Now the first step is always just eyeballing it, making sure we can get it done, and then after that fine tuning and looking at extra detail. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to set the brush to extra hardness, and then I'm just going to brush back in just for those edges around here. There we go, something like that. And it's just a question of going back and forth and making sure you've got everything you need. There we go. There we go, something like that. And voila. If I zoom back out, looks perfect. Before and after. Now, because we've seen what I've done in this photo, we know where the edit is, but people that look at this photo for the first time will have no idea that there was someone there standing in the first place. So there you have it, 3 methods using either Lightroom or Photoshop to get rid of unwanted parts of your photo. There's 100 different ways of doing it. There's all sorts of different tools and stuff, but these are the tips that I use and just work the best for me and are the less hassle, if I'm honest. So that's it for the tutorial. Make sure to drop me a comment, let me know what you want to see next, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe. My name is Mark. That was Making Instagram Bangers, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.